Here we go. Welcome to the Profit Toolbelt podcast, just for construction and contracting business owners who are interested in the business of the contracting business. If you want to find ways to work smarter, not just harder, you're definitely in the right place. My name is Dominic Rubino, and I'll be your host. Today's guest is Coach Lee Miller. You know how I tell you guys, hey, I've got a bunch of coaches on my team and I'm proud of every single one of them? Well, Coach Lee is one of those coaches. Now, today we're going to talk about a doozy. I'm talking about a doozy. This is one of Lee's specialties, and I just love this about him. He's always got a bunch of great tips and tricks and inside hacks that he's worked through before. He's turned around businesses in contracting just like I have. Today we're going to be talking about this: how to make more money as a contractor by being smart about vendor negotiations, including what to say and how to do it right. This is a fantastic episode. Now, listen, if you're a fan of Lee, actually, a lot of you who are listening are working with Lee as your coach, so you'll be happy to hear this interview. But for those of you who are interested in hearing more from Lee, I also interviewed him for the other podcast that we host. That other show is called Cabinet Maker Profit System. You can find it anywhere you find podcasts, but actually you should watch that one on YouTube. And the reason is he's talking about gross versus net profit, but he's doing a screen share. So you're actually going to see one of the forms that we use when we're working with our contractor business clients. You're going to see how Lee and I break apart the problem, identify the issues, identify the bottlenecks, and then come up with solutions. And it's much easier to see as a screen share. So if you want to see and hear more from Coach Lee, go check out Cabinet Maker Profit System on YouTube, and you can see the screen share. I think you'll really enjoy it. But today, we're going to talk on this show, Profit Toolbelt podcast, how to make more money as a contractor, being smart about vendor negotiations, what to say, and how to do it right. Now, in general, especially for those of you who are new here, you might be wondering, what's this podcast all about? This Rubino guy's all over the place already. Well, what I do is I show contractors like you how to get back in control of their construction business, even if you don't know where to start. And see, the truth is, you don't need a lot of extra time or a business degree to build a profitable and solid contracting business. You just need simple systems that will give you that quiet confidence. Now, for too long, and you've probably noticed this, our industry has been keeping secrets. Well, I'm here to put an end to that. So on this show, you're going to learn how to use simple systems in 3 places: in the office, on a job site, and in your shop. Now, more important than that, I also show people the secrets of business success, how to work smarter, not just harder, but also how to have a mindset of growth. Now, speaking of mindset, and I know some of you come to the show just for this, I got a couple of dad jokes for you today. Dad jokes that are on theme and on point for the interview I'm doing with Coach Lee Miller. Now, you might ask yourself, why dad jokes, Dom? Why bad jokes? I've heard these before. They're horrible. So why do you do dad jokes poorly delivered with poor timing? Because I just want to get you laughing. I want to get your mind open. I want to give you something to take away from this on top of what could be thought of as dry and boring business talk, which it ain't. It is not. The interview with Lee today is juicy. But I got a couple of jokes for you to get us started. And they're on theme of vendors, which is what we're going to be talking about today with Lee, right? What do you get if you play a supply chain country song backwards? Well, you get your revenue back, you get your margin back, and you get your on-time delivery back. I actually like that one a lot. Hey, what's the difference between Bigfoot and an accurate forecast? Well, Bigfoot has been sighted. A little bit of a medical problem going on here at the Rubino household. I might be oversharing here, but I accidentally swallowed some Scrabble pieces. My next shipment is expected to come out in vowels. If you're a fly on the wall of the HR department, if you know of interview process, this is what you might hear. For this job as a purchaser, we need somebody who's responsible. The applicant sitting on the other side of the desk says, well, I'm the one you want. In my last job, every time there was a problem with purchasing, they said I was responsible. And here's one. Listen, I know you're going to find a way to use this one because it's fantastic. You're going to find a way. If you don't, take this joke, put it in your pocket, use it later. What I like to do after I drink my morning coffee is I like to show the empty mug to our IT guy and tell him that I've successfully installed Java. Work hates me. Okay, listen. If you're a business owner who's curious to find ways to run your business profitably, to enjoy your business, clearly you can see Lee and I enjoy what we do. If you want to find ways to have more time off, do the things you love, build a team that you can rely on, and grow a company that you can one day sell, pass on to somebody else, or just live off the cash flow while you're on a cruise to Alaska, or you're sitting on the beach in Hawaii, or maybe you're doing what I want to do. I want to hunt Africa. I want to hunt Australia. Geez, I want to hunt ducks in the Midwest. I want to do all of that stuff, but I can't do it unless I have simple systems running my business. If you want to do those kinds of things, you're in the right place. I'm a business owner just like you. I'm also a business coach. And the only people I work with are construction and contracting business owners who have some reason that they want to get to the next level in their business. Just the other day, I spoke to a gentleman who wanted to make more money in his business, as we often hear. And what we found out, the reason he wanted to make more money is he has aging parents and he needs to take care of them. He's the responsible brother in the whole family, and it's all falling to him. How's that for a noble reason to want to make more money? Maybe that's you. Maybe you've got your reasons as well, right? Anyways, I host this podcast because one day I want to be your business coach. As a matter of fact, I have a team of business coaches just like Lee that I have personally hand-selected and trained. I have very high expectations for the people that join my team, and I'm proud of every single one of them. You're going to meet Lee in a minute. As you listen to this podcast, ask yourself if you think me and my team might be the right tool to help you get to the next level when you're ready to do that. With that being said, let me go into business coach mode right now. I'm going to challenge you because in this episode today, you're going to hear something. You're going to learn something. You're going to realize something. You're going to see something if you look at the screen share from Lee. But whatever it is, I want you to take action in the next 24 hours. Take action. That's the only thing you have to do is take one small step towards positive movement in your business. But then I also want you to pay attention to how that improves your business or your life. And I hope you know this podcast is built to educate, inform, and inspire you. So let me get into your head, and I'm going to ask you that inspirational question. Are you happy being a contractor who runs a few crews, or do you want to be a business person who just happens to run a construction company? By the end of today's episode, you'll know the answer. Let's get to it. Hello, Mr. Lee Miller. Coach. Coach Lee Miller, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dominic?
I'm good. I'm really good. Good to be on the line with you. I know you and I talk all the time, but today we're going to share this conversation with everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's nice to be on the Profit Tool Belt podcast. Thanks for having me on. There's a lot of clients already in the system that are going to be listening saying, oh, I know that guy.
I know that guy. Wow. Yeah. Except now they're listening as a podcast. They're not one-on-one with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe I should back up for a bit for people who don't know who you are. Can I do that for a second?
Go for it.
So Lee is a coach on our team. As my practice has grown, we have to find other ways to deliver quality coaching to other people. So I found Lee, hopefully we get a chance to go into your background and how you and I share the same background on different tracks of being turnaround guys in contracting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so you and I met, hopefully we get a chance to get into that because it's kind of funny. It's kind of odd how we met. And now you work hand in hand with me coaching our clients. You've got fantastic reviews. If anybody's been looking at reviews online, they'll see that Coach Lee is getting putting solid results on the table, putting time in people's hands, putting money. Anyways, it's a love-in for Lee Miller. How's that?
Absolutely. I love it. That was perfect.
Hopefully I didn't take away from your intro. Let me ask this. Lee Miller, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking to all these forward-facing contractors all over the world?
Good question. Yeah. And it's funny, I always listen to that question at the start of all of your podcasts. And I'm like, prepared for this one.
There we go.
Yeah. So like Dominic said, my name is Lee Miller. I'm one of the coaches on the 10X BLT team. I work with our clients to scale, grow, make more money, get organized, and ultimately hit your goals. And I've been doing that for a little while now. And like Dominic said, yeah, we're getting some really good results and I love it. I am super passionate about coaching others. Pretty extensive background in developing people. So this was putting two of my loves, the construction industry and developing people together.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been great.
Now you got your start in Europe in construction, which is where you get that fantastic accent. Did you know you have an accent?
I know people keep telling me, yeah, I'm originally from Edinburgh in Scotland. I've been living in North America since 2016.
Mm.
But yeah, I grew up in the UK. I cut my teeth in the industrial flooring industry. I did a full apprenticeship, so I'm a journeyman flooring contractor as well.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I did that full apprenticeship and then went through and then ultimately started running crews and doing sales and all of that good stuff. And then unfortunately, the 2008 recession rolled
Oh,
around and
you
kind of,
said the magic number 2008.
I know I can see the contractors sitting in their cars listening to this and just wincing at that,
Yeah.
that year 2008.
Yeah.
It was a tough one for all of us. But it actually turned into a bit of a blessing in disguise for me because in that lull in the construction, nothing was being built.
Mm.
The company I was actually working for went under and the whole team got let
Oh,
go.
I hate to
And
hear
that's
that.
it's the challenge of running a business at that scale. I mean, when you're talking, anywhere between a couple of million to $3 million projects, all the way up to 50 million pound projects. Sorry, I'm forgetting where I
Yeah.
am.
That's even more in dollars, just,
Even
but that
even
sounds
more
to
dollars.
me like that, almost that institutional size of work at that point. Like you're doing hospitals or universities or stadiums.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
about right?
exactly. Yeah, so industrial kitchens, universities, carpets in like big libraries, mostly government infrastructure projects, but some private ones as well.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
huge projects. You're talking, anything from 6 months to a year to 2 years. And I did do a lot of side jobs on my own as a contractor as well. I did, lots of residential
Who
clients and
didn't?
bathrooms. Of course,
Who
everybody does,
didn't?
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's where I got my start in construction. But when 2008 rolled around, I was kind of forced into changing career paths. And that's actually where I found the hospitality industry, which, is a crazy industry. It is really good. And I kind of have a bit of a saying where I think that everybody should do a year in hospitality as like almost like capital service almost. It just
Just to
it takes
understand. Yeah.
just to understand it. But yeah, it teaches you a lot of great things, right? You're dealing with people, you're working under pressure, deadlines, and because your margins are so on the line, right? You're very, very close on margins of the products that you sell. You have to do big volume to actually make lots of money,
Yeah.
and we worked, the company that I worked for was one of the biggest hospitality chains in the UK, with just over 1,000 units at that time.
So you're talking about
And
restaurant locations, or what were they?
restaurant, bars, and hotels.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
small
Yeah.
hotels. So when I started out, I was just working in the bar. I just needed a job, but I managed to work my way up fairly quickly in the first year, all the way up into like a general manager role where I was running my own unit, and then actually got brought in from the corporate team to do new opening training. So I actually got moved around all around the UK to
Wow.
go to all these new opens and training teams from scratch. So I actually got to do a lot of designing for, say, process and systems, having been someone that worked, in the units.
Yeah.
And then I got to stand up in front of 40 or 50 people at every single new unit that opened and give them the training from scratch. So this is where I found my bug for learning and development and helping people
That's
develop.
what we
So
use
that,
here now in coaching. Because really, coaching, you're facilitating a conversation with a very powerful business leader, smart person on their own right. You've got to pull the answers out of them. You've got to ask the right questions. You've got to show them new models, new ways of thinking,
yeah,
new solutions to old dusty problems. I love it.
for sure.
What brought you
Yeah.
over to North America?
So my partner actually has family here, and we came here in
Mm,
2014 for a vacation, and I fell in love with it, right? It it just gave me it was everything that I needed in my life, right? And I'm a huge fisherman, hunter,
yeah. Well,
outdoors person,
yeah.
like anything outdoors, I love it. I love to just switch off and go dark, go get my thoughts and then come back and be
Yeah.
ready to get back in
Yeah.
coaching again.
That's
Um,
one of the things you and I connected on right away, is the hunting and the fishing, which is an
eh,
interesting overlay. I never would have expected that.
Exactly. Yeah, our meeting was just by chance, but I'm super happy that it worked out the way it did. And just for
Yeah.
anyone who's listening who's a little bit confused, I'll give you the brief version of the story. As me and Dominic actually met because he was somebody who won a rifle that I was giving away in a raffle. I run an organization. There's a North America wide organization called Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
Yeah.
And we do lots of like social events, hunter education, fishing education, that kind of thing. And we ran into Dominic
At a trade show.
almost
Yeah, I
at a
bought a
trade show.
bunch of raffle tickets, and that came with what, a 1 year membership to the BHA.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then
love it.
Dominic came over to my house. We did a bit of a sketchy arms deal on my front lawn. But gave him his new rifle. We got talking. Turned out he was a coach. I was getting into coaching at that point, and yeah, here we are. I guess the rest is history, right?
You know what I liked about you is you were getting into coaching, but you've turned around other trades companies. It's hard for me to find people who've turned around and exited trades. Hopefully, maybe touch on that in your background as well before we
Yeah,
get into today's
yeah,
topic.
absolutely. So when I moved to North America, I was looking for a role, and then I actually bought into a moving company, a logistics company, that was doing around about 1 million, not very profitable, kind of variable results, semi-decent team. It wasn't a great business, but it had lots of potential.
Mm.
And I worked in that business for a while. We turned it into almost $6 million business.
Whoa.
11 vehicles, over 75 employees, turned it around and then actually bought my second business, which was a painting franchise, the sister company of the moving company, which was about $140,000 in debt when I first bought it. Spent quite a bit of time turning that business around, but ultimately ran that business for 6 years, turned it into 7 figures, hired a great team, put all the
Gee.
systems and processes in place. And it was hard. It was super hard. I had to take a big step back to step forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately sold that business in 2021 to pursue full-time coaching with 10x BLT. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I have to
yeah.
ask you a question. It's going to sound like a premeditated question, but it's not. When you look back at the painting business or even the moving business, if you knew then what you know now, how much faster could you have turned around those businesses?
Oh, 6 months, a year maybe.
Really?
Could have,
Like, oh,
oh
sorry,
yeah.
you would have shaved off 6 months or a year, or you would have
Oh no,
done
no,
it in
no.
six.
I would have done it all in 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
I would have done it all if and it took a lot of trial and error, right? Like it was building systems, implementing them, waiting for
Yeah.
them to work or not work, deciding, hey, how do we move forward? And I mean, I was lucky because I built a really good team around me.
Mm.
I built a really good team around me who were as invested in growing that business as I was. So when I came with a new system, they were bought in
They were bought
already.
in already. Yes, I
They were,
find that the people side, like I have all this, not that I have all the systems. I don't have all the answers, and neither do you, right? We have the questions. But the harder part or the slower part is getting people bought in, just getting the regular rhythms of business to change. But it gets faster the more you apply the right tools, and the more that people on the team see you and go, okay, this guy's putting in new systems, but if they don't work, he's open to changing them to make them work better. And that's how people just get on board with that, I find.
100%. Yeah. I decided with that business as well, like because it was very team driven, right? Big
Mm.
teams of people. And I mean, some people will get a hint when I say this what the company was, but we did painting projects in one day. So you can imagine, we
You would
already had the
paint my
cards.
entire house in a day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
That's
there's
a
there's
value
probably
proposition.
there's painters on this call right now that are saying it can be done.
Yeah.
I would argue and say it can because I've seen it and I've done it
Well,
and it
because you
is
ran a business
possible.
that did it. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of it was on the people side, right? You couldn't achieve that goal of one day. You couldn't achieve the long-term goals that we had for revenue or production or gross profit margin or anything like that. You couldn't do that without having a full team of cheerleaders and ambassadors backing you.
Yeah.
And so when as we progressed through this business, I kind of changed my mindset into saying, well, how do I set this up so that it runs in order, right? And I came up with a saying, and it was happy people plus good clients
Mm.
will make money, right? So if you keep your team happy, they're going to make your customers happy, right? And if you have the right client, then they're going to be willing to pay premium rates for that. And
Hmm.
then the money comes after. So people first, then the customer, then the cash comes.
Yeah.
And I made that my entire focus. In fact, I have a saying very similar to one that you say a lot, where you would say a business owner who just so happens to
Yeah.
insert the industry.
Yeah.
Whereas I like to say a people development business that happens to just do painting. We're a
Uh,
people development business. We bring people in, we nurture them, we grow them, we develop them into
yeah.
leaders, but we happen to do it through painting. That's just what we did.
It's
Um,
amazing how transferable the skills of business turnarounds is,
yeah,
because And this is something I've noticed a lot with you, and I think your clients have noticed it as well, is you're able to cut through the fog. There's like
Yeah.
1,000 decisions in front of a business owner. Do you know the analogy I like to use is, you ever seen a DJ in front of a mixing board? You know, they got the two turntables,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
got a bunch of levers and dials, and they know what they're doing, and the music sounds great, right? I don't know what I'm doing. I would look at that and I'm like, I don't know, turn everything up and then play something from the 80s. That would be my formula. I don't know what I'm doing. But those guys know all the dials, which ones to ignore, which ones to push and pull. And I think that's what you and I do with a business owner. It's like we just clear away all the clutter and say, okay, all we're going to do is focus on this button and this lever. And when that one is fixed, you move to the next one and the next one. And that's a turnaround. It should actually seem kind of boring and systematic. It's not jolty and lurchy.
Yeah.
Those are two new words that are going to appear in the calendar next year: jolty and lurchy.
100%.
All right. Take us along in the story now. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. No, so I was just going to say, like, a lot of contractors become very, very emotionally attached to their business. And what I typically see is a lot of them will become even more attached the harder their business is to run. It's like, we can't let this fail. We can't let this die because I'm so invested in it. Yeah, it's me. The business is me, and I'm the most important person in the business. Which can be a challenge for me personally. Like, if I'm looking at a business, I'm looking at it as an asset or is it a liability, right? Is it something I can sell on later? Is it something I can increase the value of and then sell it later? And I've done that twice now with two companies. And for a lot of the contractors there, like, you need to be actively increasing the value of your business, right? Like, I look at company, like a valuation of a business, as a success metric, and say, at what point do I want to hop off the bus and move on to my next thing? Now, for me, I love not knowing what I'm going to do next. I know that uncertainty isn't great for a lot of people, but I know that I'm always going to make the most of it. So I actually love being in that position. Like, hey, like, can I get this business to 5-6 million, sell it, and then move on to my next thing? And that's
a mindset shift. Isn't that a mindset 100%. Shift? Yeah, craziness.
Yeah. And that could be power washing, or that could be, a trust company. That could be whatever. I would be excited for it because it's just layering in the systems, getting the people in place, building the business around values, and then getting to work. Right?
That's because you're a businessman who just happens to be a contractor. That's what and that's what you and I teach people: how to become that business person who just happens to be a flooring installer, a roofer, a remodeler, a cabinet maker, a cabinet installer. Just the trade doesn't matter. And I think a lot of people get caught up in thinking, like you said, I'm the business and this business is intense and I'm the only one who can run it. That's the hero syndrome, which we can talk about later. Today, you and I are going to talk about actually something only business owners care about, which is vendor negotiations. But we're still not done your intro, because at least one of your other gigs is super interesting to me and is on the bucket list of a bunch of other people who listen.
Yeah. Okay. So when I sold my business in 2021, I took a little bit of a hiatus to do something that I really wanted to do. And that was pursue a career in fishing charters. So becoming a guide.
Fishing guide.
Yeah. I wanted to be a salmon fishing guide. And like I said, I'm a huge fisherman. I love going out fishing. There was an opportunity that popped up at exactly the right time where I got to jump in and start pursuing that role as a guide. But just given the managerial skills that I had and the business skills that I had, ultimately we grew that business up into like a much bigger charter with 4 boats and a bunch of guides over time. So I actually just became a manager again.
You became the GM of that.
Yeah. But the good thing about that job was it gave me a lot of access to people who were, way higher in status, right? Like I'm talking like huge CEOs, celebrities, athletes, people with you just wouldn't interact with on a daily basis, and you probably just see them on the TV. But I actually got to shake hands and go for dinner and then put them out on the boats and connect with them over their passion.
I just want people to understand, you're not allowed to name names, obviously, but when a big concert rolled into your city, the lead singer or solo artist of that band would be the person or their family that you would take out on the boat. So we're talking about, you're not allowed to mention their names, but everybody can guess who they might be. That's fantastic. That is so cool. Not that those people are any more important than taking me out, because I want to go out fishing all the time.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And that was, part of it as well was building relationships with, say, some of the more prestigious hotels in the area and making referral partners from some of the,
Yeah.
most executive level of hospitality people for these, famous singers and athletes and stuff like that. So we had the connection with them and they would, they're selling the business in the background.
I love
I
it.
would get to facilitate the whole deal. So
So
anyway,
that let me tell you
I've
the
got,
secret. The
yeah,
secret here that people are going to find out, especially if they ever meet you and I through boot camp or through coaching, is that you're also one of the kings of low cost marketing. Low cost, high impact. But we'll leave that for another podcast interview. Today, let's switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about vendor negotiations. Because one of the things that I'm really impressed with you, and I've seen you walk clients through this, is on the, one of the profit leaks is, or a couple of the different profit leaks are around the side of setting budgets or costs that are out of control, even if I don't think they're out of control. So why don't I put it in your
absolutely.
hands to take us through how you go about just making sure that you're not spending too much running the operations side of the business?
For sure. Yeah. So a big thing for me, and one of the more immediate things that I like to teach early on in the coaching relationship is to get the ball rolling on the net versus GPM conversation, or for people that's net profit versus gross profit margin. Um,
We
and I
should
find
we
that
should do a
if
shameless plug here, by the way.
we should,
Do you
on
want
you
to tell
go,
everybody? Yeah, no, tell
you go,
everybody.
you do it.
Well, so we also recorded an episode with Lee for the other podcast. The other podcast episode was all about gross versus net. Now, it's on the Cabinet Maker Profit System podcast. If you're listening to this show and you're like, I'm actually a flooring contractor, I don't care about cabinetry, cool your jets. Go listen to that episode because it's about the business of the contracting business. Very little to do with cabinets. I think the only time we mentioned cabinets is in the intro.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for mentioning that and bringing it up. So folks, if you want, go listen to that. Anyways, back to you.
Yeah, 100%. So understanding how your GPM affects your net, but there is a section that you'll hear in that podcast as well where we talk about expenses, right? We talk about reducing our costs. We talk about everything that's left over when you run through the funnel of, say, revenue through profitability all the way to the dollar that you actually get to stuff in your jeans. And so this episode that we're doing, we're talking all about leveraging the vendor relationship just to squeeze a little bit more into your gross profit margin so that you've got more take-home pay at the end of the day. Ultimately,
Sounds
what it is.
beautiful. Yeah.
But you're going to have a ton of fun in the process, right? We can throw numbers around, we can talk about GPM and, stuff like that. But I mean, ultimately, this is one of the funnest ways to actually reduce your expenses, but then also build key relationships as well. So we're going to start. Yeah. Well, we just jump right into it, Dom?
Jump right into it, Lee. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's start off with the root problem. Okay. So the root problem is a lot of people see their supplier or their vendor in a kind of transactional relationship, right? It's like, I need something. Can I get something? Okay, I'll buy it from you. And they kind of leave it at that. They don't see the possibilities of utilizing their vendor or their rep or, their supplier as somebody who could be a key member in actually scaling your business up. And it's a shame because there's people who can do this really well, and there's people who don't have the skill set. Hopefully by the end of this podcast today, you're going to have a few more tools in your toolbox to, actually sit down and have a conversation with your rep to try and negotiate a little bit. But I will say this, a kind of example of this would be one of our recent clients who went through the bootcamp training with us. He left bootcamp, went and had this conversation, actually did a side call with him and kind of talked him through what to say. And he walked out with a 10% discount on the products that he was buying every single day. So 10% of all of his material spend was just sitting there. And the longer you leave it without actually bringing it up or asking for it, they're just going to happily, the vendors
they're just going to charge it to you. Yeah. 10% is a big number, actually, if you think about that. So 10% on one line item, but it's something that he bought all the time.
All the time. Yeah. Base products, right? So base products. And that's huge for his business. Because it immediately impacts GPM. You save 10% on your materials, it's 10% right to your GP of money that you actually get to keep.
Yeah.
So
GPM is gross profit margin, folks, just because Lee and I are using lingo here. Gross profit. You have to have gross profit before you get the net profit. The net profit leads to the cash you put in the front pocket of your jeans.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything that you get to keep before your expenses come off. But yeah,
Yeah.
again, go back to the Cabinet Maker Profit System podcast episode. I really break it down for everyone.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
explained way better in there. But yeah, another example, I've used this personally in my own businesses as well, where I made it a key piece to my profitability to maintain a really good relationship with my vendor and my suppliers. Um, Not only for discounts, not just so that I could say like, hey, I want a discount on my products, but also for things like recruitment, industry trends, updates on technology that's getting rolled out in the industry, and then even, some free products if you're like, hey, you need someone to test that out for you,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
the guy. And it can be huge. So there's tons of value to be
I'll t-
had.
I'll tell you the other reason to have good relationships with vendors is prioritization. If they like dealing with me and it's the Thursday before a long weekend and I put in a call and you put in a call at the same time, they don't like you as much, but they like me as much. And there's one pallet left of, let's say I'm doing fencing, right? So there's whatever the pickets are, who's going to get it? They're like, Lee, I'm sorry. We just sold the last pallet of pickets,
Absolutely.
and it's times like that that the value really of those relationships really comes to the fore.
Yeah, for sure, right? Like an infinite amount of possibilities of how your vendor or supplier can actually help you, whether it's
Mm,
just by having, preferential treatment because you're a good client, you treat them well, you make them feel like you want to speak to them, you give them the time of day. So yeah, I mean, I was doing this in my own business, right? And if you're going to be paying money to a supplier like that, you'd be as well squeezing as much as you can, and maximizing on that opportunity. Um, by the time I actually sold that business, I wasn't even dealing with the local rep anymore. I was being wined and dined by
national.
regional and
Oh,
national managers and getting invited to the table where they would have a big meeting and they would actually ask me for input on the industry by the end of it. So that was super cool because I didn't even have to negotiate my rates with a rep who didn't have the decision making
yeah,
ability. I could go direct to the source. In fact, I still talk to a lot of these guys now. Um, a lot of these national managers who want to, say, bring me in to talk to the industry to talk
right.
about, exactly what we're talking about today. Maybe
Love it.
not this particular topic, because I'm sure they don't want everybody talking about how to get a discount with them, but other
No,
things in the industry too. Um, so yeah, so we need to talk about the way that we think about vendors. So we have to start seeing them more as a resource for our business and meeting with them regular. I'm talking like every 3 months or so, and talking about your goals and how they can help you get there. So that's the big one, transparency, right?
yeah,
Um, and when you share your business goals transparently with your rep, they'll be way more equipped to help you.
yeah.
They'll be way more
That
equipped to
poor
help you.
rep. I've been the rep, by the way. I've been
Yeah,
the rep in my younger days when I had darker and more hair. Your boss is asking you, what's your projection? How much are you going to sell this year? You're like, I don't know. None of my guys know. How am I going to know? But if I had a customer like you, Lee, who said, we did a million in product last year, we're going to do 1.5 next year. I take that number back to my boss and I go, look, I figured it out. Lee Miller is going to do 1.5 million in product next year. I know, right? Of course, they love that
absolutely.
info. Yeah.
Yeah, it's they love data points, right? Like they love to be able to bank on each individual client being able to contribute a certain amount to their projected sales for the year. If I know
Right.
if I can secure 20% of sales from Dominic, 20% from, say Steve or Pablo or whoever, then I can piece together what my sales are going to look like for the year.
Mm-hmm.
And that just makes things easy for them. So actually knowing your own numbers is the starting point here, is knowing where you are and where you want to go. So I'm like a business plan, is going to be one of the key kind of things to prep here for actually getting in tune with your supplier from a planning perspective to get that discount. So I'll touch on that in just a minute. Because I am going to talk you guys through how to actually have
Sure.
that call, but there is some prep work that we need to go through. Um, so communication is key. Keeping vendors in the loop with upcoming projects, common challenges that you're facing, technical problems, for example. The chances are that they've been a part of the solution for somebody else in your industry already, who is, just picked up the phone
Mm,
and asked them, hey, how do I resolve this problem? So they actually are a really good resource for when you are facing challenges in your business. and they like to be the guy, they love to be the guy that can help you solve your
The
problem.
connector. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to technical stuff too, because if they're selling a technical product, right? For us, it was paint, for example. They know the specifications of all of those paints. Did you apply that in between X temperature and X temperature? Did you
Right.
apply it with this size roller? They're the experts on these products. So when something goes wrong on site, it's always best just to give them a call and they'll say, "Oh yeah, here's exactly why that went wrong," and you can build that into a system so that you can avoid it for later.
Mm.
So the first thing I would do is if I wanted to, like, let's just say, for example, I would just, I don't really have much of a relationship with my vendor other than when I'm putting an order in, they're sending it out. That's
So we're
it.
starting kind of cold.
Let's start cold. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Very transactional is what a lot of people that are listening to this podcast are probably sitting in right now, is that situation. So we need to start increasing communication.
Mm.
We need to actually
Okay.
set up something in our calendar to actually put in our calendar and make sure that we check in with our rep, supplier, or vendor, whoever that is. And it doesn't have to be a negative topic. Okay. You wanted to, even if it was just a check-in to say, "Hey, how are you? What's new? What's happening in the industry? Anything you think I should know?
Mm.
I've got some insights for you because I've been chatting with some other contractors and we think this would be a great product." Like they're open to that feedback too.
Sure.
But the key here is getting your rep or your vendor to a point where they don't wince when they see your name pop up on their phone when it's ringing. When you get those calls and it's like, "Oh, this guy again. Oh, I wonder what the problem is."
Yeah.
We need to move out of that space for them and be like, "Oh, I'm really excited to actually answer the phone to this person because it's going to be something positive."
Mm.
So yeah, so don't make it all bad news. Like, actually make an effort to call that vendor or your rep and just check in and just start to build almost a friendly relationship with them. And you'll see, especially if you're coming from a place of praise, where say you put a big order in and they went and facilitated it and sent it to you, just picking up the phone and saying, "Hey man, I really appreciate you getting that order put together for me."
Mm.
Like, they don't get that very often.
No.
Not
And
from
that's
not
an
from a lot
easy
of
way to
people.
stand out in the crowd just by
Easy
thanking them.
way. Yeah. And this doesn't just apply to, say, vendors and contractors. It's the same for your employees, right? Who doesn't like to be told that they're doing a good job?
Yeah.
Everybody does. And that can be the kind of entryway into starting that positive relationship with your vendor. Is just to call up and say, "Hey, thanks for facilitating that," or "Thanks so much for giving me that advice. It was huge. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you." But the key here is, like, now that we're doing this, we want the rep to actually come and spend physical time with us as well.
Ah.
Okay. It's not just about the relationship over the phone or over a Zoom call, but actually in person if you can. I mean, if you're ordering from somewhere outside of your local state,
Sure.
for example, that might be a bit more tough. But if they do come to town, you're going to want to try and lock up some time with them so you can spend some one-on-one time. Now, in saying this, we booked a ton of fishing charters for big corporate businesses to take referral partners out on the boat. They'd be stuck on that boat for 7 or 8 hours.
Yeah.
And I mean, fishing is fishing. There's lulls in between, right? That's time to shop. That's time to talk shop and, discuss, rates and discounts and stuff. Or you've got them trapped on a boat for 7 hours. You should be able to squeeze a couple of percent off, your
Yeah.
bill in that conversation.
This is, you know what I'm enjoying about this is you're talking about setting up a professional and intentional relationship. Because a lot of people on the show will hear me say, when we talk about your revenue responsibility per hour, if a rep from a certain company comes and just drops in for an hour to chat, that's not what we're talking about. There, you're reactive to that rep coming in. You're talking about a professional, intentional relationship that has an end purpose, but you're driving the agenda, not the guy who comes in because your coffee's good and he wants to say hi.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I knew you were going to bring that one up because you're right. However, I would challenge that if your rep does walk in and sits down in your office, it's a good opportunity to try and get 2 or 3% off your products.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take that.
But
I'll
yeah,
take that.
but proactive, right? You want to have a proactive relationship so that I know in 3 months' time I'm going to be sitting down with my supplier again. What are all the things that I need to review with them in order to maximize that conversation?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What are all the things in my business that I want to ask questions about? Or I want to find out about the industry and what's happening with this piece of machinery or with this set of tools that are coming out. Like, I want to have first dibs. I want to secure that. Those are all really good things to sit down and actually map out an agenda of what you're going to say and what you want to cover with your rep as well.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So if you've done those 2 points, if you've set up the recurring schedule of calls, you're checking in regularly, you're saying thank you, and maybe you want to get a chance to actually spend some time with your rep one-on-one. Well, I mean, there's industry events all the time. Either it's in store, it's somewhere in
Mm,
the next state, for example. Call up your rep and say, "Hey, are you going to this? Can I come with you?" Right? Spend a day or so with your rep at an industry event. You'll learn a lot from them, and then they're going to introduce you to people as well. So it's a great opportunity for you actually to spend time with your rep,
mm.
not only at industry events, but one of the perks of having a great relationship with your vendor is they might reach out to you and say, "Hey, I've got 2 tickets to the football game. I've got, a pass on the golf course. I've got a box at the hockey game. Do you want to come?" And this happens, right?
Yeah,
And a lot of people don't know this, but if it's a big supplier, a big material supplier, a lot of them have a little golden credit card that is budgeted specifically for taking clients out
yep,
and showing them a good time to buy your love,
that's right.
essentially, is what it
Yeah.
is. And if they've got clients, if they don't use it, they're using it for your competitors. If you don't call up and ask and, actually get involved
Oh,
in that, they're using it.
that's a really good point. So if you're a remodeler and you're wondering how come so and so always has a really good relationship with the drywall guy, it's because they're proactively working that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. He could have budgeted $5,000 at the start of the year just from that contractor to help him level up his business and get more sales for them, right? It's
Yeah.
marketing. It's essentially marketing for them. And it does pay off. But yeah, they'll go to bat for you. And I tend to find that the better the relationship you have with them, the better the events get that you get to go to
Oh, for
as well.
sure. You get invited to
Yeah, yeah.
boxes,
Yeah, 100%.
box
And
seats at the game. And yeah.
yeah, for sure. And again, and I don't want to make this podcast all about fishing, but one of the things that I did with my suppliers when they called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to go play golf?" I'd say, "I'm not actually a big golfer. You want to take me fishing?"
You just asked.
I just asked, be like, "Hey, you want to go fishing?" I'm like, "Sure." "You want to
Yeah.
trap me on a boat for 7 hours or 8 hours and we'll go fish? Let's do it.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
events do get better and better the bigger you get. So that's the pre-work. You need to set up the relationship first. Set up the charter of communications with your contact points of when you're going to
Mm,
check in with your supplier, maintaining that relationship, get to learn them and their families and what their interests are really well.
yeah.
Um, attend events with them, spend time with them. And if you can do that over 3 months, then you might be in a position to actually move forward with what we would call a vendor negotiation call, right?
Let's get to
Or
that.
an
Yeah. Let's
interview,
get to this thing. Yeah.
which is the fun part. Now there is a little bit of prep work here. So, like I said, we want to walk into this meeting with an agenda and we want to be prepared to say, "Hey, this
Mm,
is where we are now. This is where we're trying to get to go. And I
yeah.
can do that. I can achieve that goal, but I need a little bit of your help year by year." So, the first thing that you're going to want to know is what are your most commonly used products? What's the number one product that you carry in your stock or you sell to clients that you're going to make up, say, 70 or 80% of your orders, right?
You're talking about me as let's say I'm a roofer or a remodeler. What's my biggest line item or what's their most popular line item as the
No,
rep?
no, no. What is your biggest line item? What is the product that you can sell repeatably to most of your customers,
Ah,
right?
okay.
So that if that was asphalt shingles, for
Or
example,
Windows or something like that. Right.
windows,
Yeah.
insert the blank. So you want to know what your main bread and butter product is because that is the first product that we're going to try and negotiate down on. That's the biggest one. That's the one that we're going to try and get 3, 4, 5% off of.
Mm,
And it's going to make up most of our revenue and most of that extra gross margin that we're going to have is if we can do that on
fantastic.
our main product.
Yeah.
The way that I did it was I had 3 products that I would sell to my client. I would have a kind of lower grade, a mid grade, and then a premium product. And I had rates negotiated for each product. That way, it depended on the type of client and what their need was. I could say, well, hey, if you use the premium product, it's going to last longer. I could sell it. I had it covered for all 3 products where my GPM or my margin on each product was always baked in. Didn't matter which product I was
I
selling.
see.
Each one
Yeah.
I was guaranteed to make my margin on it, my upcharge, right?
Right.
So figure out what your number one product is, or maybe your top 3 products are that you sell, um, and you want to know how much you're currently ordering of those products.
Right. You want to be able to say to the guy, look, did you know we spend, I'll just pick a number, $50,000 a year on this line item or 500,000, depending on the size of your company. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So know where you are right now, what you've purchased. And what I like to do is say, right, okay, well, if I'm at $1 million right now, and I've spent $200,000 on product, I can scale that very easily. If I wanted to go to 3 million, I can safely assume that I'm going to be spending around 600,000 on product, right?
Right.
Just roughly. I mean, we could get deep into the numbers, but just as a general rule of thumb, I could say, right, that's, I can
Close.
produce.
Yeah, we know where
it's
we're
close.
at.
Yeah. So that's number one. The second part of this is knowing how much how much holding stock of that product that you can handle, right? So if you've got a storage yard or a warehouse or something
Okay.
like that, know how much space that you actually have to hold if you were to purchase that product in bulk, right? That's going to tell you, how much you can negotiate for bulk pricing. And I'll get to that because I know that everybody's probably saying, well, I can't order 1,000 sheets at MDF, for example, and hold it in my shop. You're right. There's a way around that, and we'll get to that in a minute. But we want to know, if we could order in bulk, what would that look like?
Sure. Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. The next thing is knowing your volume of sale of a product, right? So if I was fairly confident that I could sell, say, 500 gallons of paint over the course of 12 months, I need to know that I can achieve that goal, right? I need to know that I can sell that. The reason for this is, and we're going to get into this in the next stage here, which is the actual call itself, is rebates. So this is me sitting down with my supplier and saying, hey, well, if I sell 500 gallons of this paint, as an example, over the next 12 months, will you rebate me back 2% or 3%?
Right.
That way you're not having to either volume buy it in advance. You're just negotiating, hey, if I hit this milestone,
if I hit this number, will you give,
will you give me the discount? So rebates is something that not a lot of people actually bring on the table, but 9 times out of 10, it is a possibility for a lot of contractors to negotiate that. And that way you don't need to handle storing the product. You don't need to float all the cost up front. The rebate is a really good way to negotiate as well. Okay, next one is your numbers. So when we talked about putting where I am now and where I want to be projections, put it in a like very easy to read graph, right? You like this, Dominic. You love to see a
I
good
love
graph
graphs up and to the right. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to see numbers
I like
across
graphs.
the screen, but Dominic likes to see numbers on a graph. But having a graph is saying, hey, here's my projection. Like, almost think of it as an info packet all about the growth that you're going to experience in your business that you can hand to your rep and say, let's visually look at something, right? Because me just telling you, hey, I'm going to grow over the next 3 years, and me actually physically showing you something that's got a visual on it, it's a psychological thing, right? I'm way more likely to buy into something visual than I am just to hear you talking about it.
And this is just another reason why you and I build dashboards for people. A company dashboard because when you see the existing numbers, it's easy to do. It's called an extrapolation, to use our geeky business language, right? But you could just see a projection where it's going to go in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny that you said that, because I actually had a call yesterday where a client who recently implemented our dashboard said that they just hit $100,000 for their first month.
Yeah.
So that's huge. That was one of our goals, is we want to be doing 100K a month. And we did it just by looking at numbers and putting them into a dashboard.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. So the next one is the potential for accounts receivable discounts. This is another one that a lot of people actually forget about and if you think about this in your own business, is how long do you have to wait for an invoice to get paid? How much can you float your business before you're in trouble to pay your guys, right? Like, or pay for your supplies. So an accounts receivable discount is just you negotiating, if I can pay my bill off for these materials in a shorter time span, what is that worth to you as a discount for me on the product, right? Because we all like to get paid faster. Imagine a major supplier has thousands of contracts out on net 15, net 30. They have cash flow they need to worry about too. So you can sometimes negotiate that too. So where I'm getting at here on the prep side of things is just know what you can afford right after you make the purchase, right? So that could be, for example, if you take a deposit for the project that you're doing, right? Make sure that's enough to cover all materials. Then you can purchase it straight away. As soon as you get that deposit, you can actually apply that to I'm gonna pay my materials bill off up front, and then it's good to go. So I'll come back to that in a second. So let's talk about the actual negotiation.
Yeah. So we're into it now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is where, if you've done everything that we talked about in the first part of this podcast, where we talked about, setting up the relationship, having a good relationship, spending some time, you've got your prep work ready. Now it's the time to pick up the phone and book your actual meeting.
So the way that I like to do that is, first thing is I like to make sure that all decision makers will be there.
Oh,
I want
that's fantastic. That's the basic, one of the basic rules of making any sale. Commercial,
Absolutely.
residential, doesn't matter. It even works in this. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not going to ask just for my rep. I'm also going to ask for the regional manager or the national whoever's going to be the one that actually signs off on this. Because I don't want to wait 4 months of back and forth with, am I getting a discount? Am I not getting a discount? I want to try and make this as immediate as possible.
Sure.
Within the next 7 to 14 days, I want to have that discount applied and be able to buy product at that discounted level.
Yeah.
So I want to have all the decision makers there. I'm picking up the phone and calling my rep and I'm saying, hey, Mr. Rep, I would really love to sit down with you and talk about pricing. I want to go over some projections that I'm making for my business. Here's a little side hack as well. If you're working with someone like Dominic or I, if you say the words, I am working with a business coach and we've ran the numbers, your rep's ears are going to prick up.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But being transparent again, I want to sit down, I want to talk about pricing, and I want to talk about projections for the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
Using your products. They're going to say, all right, okay, great. When would you like to meet? So you discuss the date, you discuss the time and the location, go speak, like get them to go and speak to their, say, regional manager, get them on board, and then you guys set up, you put it in your calendar, and you get prepped to have one of the most influential profit negotiations of your life.
Yeah, I just want to take a second here and highlight something you just said there. So right now we're talking about us as business owners, trades business owners, having this conversation with one of our vendors, somebody that supplies us material. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to call the guy and say, I want to talk about our projections for the next 4 or 5 years. Sure. I want everybody listening, to think about a builder in your area calling you and saying the same thing, or an HOA calling you. Imagine an HOA, and in Canada, they're called strata councils, calling you and saying, hey, Lee, can you come by our office? We want to talk about having you as the exclusive glass guy, the exclusive paving stone guy, the exclusive landscaper for the next 4 or 5 years. Would you not call your wife as soon as you got off the phone and say, honey, we made it. The HOA wants to talk to me. The company, the builder, the biggest builder in the city wants to talk to me. That's the relationship that Lee is talking about setting up. That's what conversation is going to happen on their end. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It's this is next level stuff, right? Like, this isn't the guy that doesn't have the time because he's too busy swinging the hammer. This is an entrepreneur move here where you need to pull yourself out of the day-to-day.
A business owner who just happens to run a construction company.
Absolutely.
Look at that.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Okay, so want to have those reports ready. Want to make sure that we've got our projections there. We know what we're doing over the next 5 years. Again, if you don't have that, if you don't know how to figure that out, or you don't have the time, give me and Dominic a call, because we would love to sit down with you and just run you through like a quick projections, show you the kind of work that we do with our clients, and then you can actually use that as material in this call as well. Yeah, I'm giving away a freebie on your podcast, Dominic.
It's our freebie. It's all right.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so now we're actually getting into the negotiation, right? We booked the time, booked the date, everybody's on board, and we're actually going in to meet. So again, start the conversation with either I'm working with a business coach and we've ran the numbers, or I've ran the numbers and this is what it looks like. This is when you're going to hand out your little info packet on all the growth for your business over the next 4 to 5 years. And you're going to walk them through that report. So you're going to show them the types of projects that you're taking on, what your material costs over time are, let them know about current pricing, and let them know that you're going to grow faster if they can help you in this meeting today. Okay. So if you literally just say to them like, hey, I'm going to show you the projections, but I could go much faster and actually achieve this milestone depending on the outcome of this meeting today with you guys.
Wow.
Just get them excited to be like, well, I really want to help that guy because he's excited about this. I'm excited about it. Let's see if we can make it happen. And just let them know that this isn't just hey, I'm trying to grab as much discount as possible from just you. Let them know that you're revamping costs all the way throughout the business, from your labor rates to your your expenses. You're trying to get a baseline and bring everything down and tighten everything up so that you can have maximum GP, and then you can have maximum net, because net is gas in the tank to drive farther and grow the business further. The more net you have, the bigger you can expand. So by the end of this call, if they or this meeting, if they've given you what you need or they've done their part, then you can then tackle other areas in your business to kind of tighten things up.
and ultimately make a lot more money at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to get into the actual negotiation for the discounts now.
Okay, so we've prepped ourselves.
Yep.
We've made the call. We're calling Frank. The rep is coming in, and hopefully Frank's manager. And now we're at the table. We're having the discussion in our shop.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
The coffee's still steaming hot. We're sitting at the table. We're looking at our vendor and his manager, and they're sitting there going, what is this guy going to ask for? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, we're going to start with our common product, right? We're going to start with just one. We're going to ask one. Now there's a kind of underlying thing here where we want to try and get your supplier into the habit of saying yes. So we're going to start small. We're going to start with our biggest product and say, we're just going to negotiate this specific product for now.
So let's say it's windows, just as an example, because a lot of people here would do windows, whether they're remodelers or builders, even roofers. Like a lot of guys will use windows. So if you don't mind. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say it was windows. So I would say, for example, I'm going to be ordering, 2008. I don't know what size of sheet comes for glass. I mean, I'm assuming that
I'll just say they're vinyl windows. We're going to be ordering 2000 vinyl windows of various sizes throughout the year. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then I would then say, right, so that's my main product that I want to negotiate. And currently this is what my pricing is at right now.
Yeah.
In order for me to get just on this product to the goal that I have in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, I need the pricing to be further in line with this. Now you should set that up so that it's lower than what you would actually expect to pay, because we want to leave some room for going back and forth. But I would say, if you guys give me like a 6% discount on that, that would be super helpful. Do you think you guys could do that? And they're going to say, no, we could maybe do like maybe 3%. You're like, all right, okay. What about 4? Do you think we could squeeze 4? No, it's going to be 3. All right, okay, 3, okay. And then we're going to move into the next product. So they're not like anticipating you moving into that next product. They think you're just negotiating this one thing. But we're gonna layer in the next product. We're gonna say, well, since you couldn't do 4% on this product, do you think you could go 4 on this one? Something that's probably a little less common, right? I wouldn't do more than 2 or 3 products. I would leave it at that. You don't want to ask too much. Just keep it with your most common stuff. And again, if you're like say a hardware store, not just lumber, but tools and supplies and consumables, there's different ways that you can see one. Yeah.
Can I interrupt for a second? Because I want to put this conversation in the mind of that rep and their manager. For sure. Because I've been those guys. So let's say I get a phone call from Lee, and you're a vendor and you buy lots of windows from us, right? I think I said 2,000 windows a year. That'd be a pretty big remodeler, but it doesn't matter what the number is. Anyways, I get a phone call from Lee, and Lee does everything you've just mentioned there. We've been hanging out a little bit. We've been talking, getting friendly. We're a proactive kind of company. Then I call you and I say, hey, Lee, I'd like to have you and the manager come in to talk about the projections I just did with my business coach for next year. That rep is going to hang up these guys. Sure, Lee, let's do it Tuesday at 2:00, blah, blah. That rep's going to hang up the phone. They're going to quickly change their underwear. They're going to go to their manager's office and say, hey, man, Lee wants to talk to us about his 5-year projection. They're going to close the door, and they're both going to say, how do we keep Lee's account? And they're going to come up with things that we've never heard of, because maybe their vendor has a co-op marketing program. Maybe they're going to talk about rebates, but they're going to start negotiating on your behalf to keep your account before they show up for that hot coffee in your office. Is that what you've seen as well? Because they're loaded. They want to keep you.
100%.
Right? Suddenly they've got these cool programs. Suddenly there's Cirque du Soleil tickets if you and your wife ever want to go. Suddenly there's all this cool stuff, and you're like, oh, interesting. Anyways, I want to put that on the table, because I've been the guy on the other side of the table too.
For sure. That credit card starts warming up in their wallets.
Plastic, fantastic. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so let's just say that we've negotiated, right? We went for 5, we came down to 3 on one product, then the next one we went to 2% or we went to 1%, whatever, right? Every little helps here. And again, if this is the first time you're having that conversation with your supplier, anything is a win. Yeah, anything is a win at this point, right? Yeah. So we've negotiated those products. We've got some good pricing. They're maybe in a position where they're saying like, okay, that's what we can do, and they'll agree to it. Next, we've got the payment terms. This is where you can bring that concept of, well, if I can pay for those products sooner, can I get a further 1 or 2%, right? Taking advantage of their needs to maintain their cash flow. Now, I want you guys, if you're listening to this, to put yourself in that position. Imagine you could get paid way sooner after every project from a supplier. like what would that do for you from a mindset piece? And in a cash flow perspective, it would just be a positive all round.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to give a 1% or a 2% discount in order to get paid way faster? 1% actually sounds pretty good, right? And there's some math here in the background where the longer it takes to get paid, there's still work happening, right? You've got your admin people following up. You've got your finance guys checking in with that company, say, hey, when are we getting paid? Then there's errors and paperwork and all that good stuff. If you can just automate that by saying, hey, I'll pay you 2 days after to get your materials, I would love that if I was the supplier. I'd be like, absolutely, sure. Yeah. I'll take a drop to my profit margin if I can, get that payment.
Yeah, because there's a cost. At that point, that supplier is a bank. They're lending you money. Yeah, there's actually something that you and I have in the the Google Drive folder that we share with all of our clients, the cash trap formula, where how much it costs at market to actually be a lender to our customers. None of us think about that. Well, they do when we do the exercise, but there's a cost to it.
There is. Yeah, 100%. The longer it takes to get paid, the more money you lose in between. You're going to lose that anyway, so you'd be
might as well make it up.
Yeah,
I love it.
So yeah, you can save, for us, we could get 3% discount further by our payment terms in our own business for how much paint we ordered, which was huge, right? And we were already negotiated our rates all the way down to say like 30 to 40% off retail of some products. So you could, just by me being able to save that 30 or 40% on retail tells me how much their profit margin is on that product in the beginning.
Right.
So it's there for the taking if you can get it, and it totally helps. It totally helps you. And again, you need to have a good deposit system set up where you can afford the materials up front, or even a payment plan if you're doing, say, a big renovation and you're ordering materials in stages, as you just negotiate that in each stage of when you're going to actually be purchasing those materials.
Yeah.
Okay. Then comes everything else. So any other product, right? So any products that they sell that you might get asked for, I like to throw something in here in the negotiation just in case it comes up later. Say a customer wants something kind of out with my regular product, something a bit more custom. I would say, hey, like, what do you think about everything else? Could we do like a blanket 1% or 2% on everything else? And they're going to go, this guy's asking a lot. But if you don't ask, you don't get, right? But you want to get them thinking about that. But you can go, hey, like, for this stuff, I'm probably not going to order much of it. Like, but for this project that might come up, or I've quoted this kind of funky project and I need this amount of material, I just want to try it out. I might add it to my product line. Could you, get me a discount or get me some samples here, right? Could you get me some samples of this product? Now, again, in that same situation with, say, painting, for us, if we had like an exterior and the client wanted a much more premium product, I would just call up my rep and say, hey, I've never used that product before. Do you think you could get me 20 gallons for free just so I can try out on this one? And I might add it to my product line. Well, I just made like an extra 30% on my project in materials.
You just asked for 20 gallons for free.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, they've got a fund for that too. Yeah.
I want to point something out because there's people listening who go, oh, I could never ask those questions. This is one of the benefits of working with a business coach. We show you how to do things faster and smarter, right? You can't have enough experience in this world to figure it out all on your own. If you did half of what Lee is talking about, would you be happy? Because you don't have to do it all. You still have to be yourself. Maybe it's not in you to ask, but if you did half of what Lee is talking about, imagine what that impact would be on your company. Just imagine that alone. It adds up, and it's really the smart way to run your business, and you're still building a relationship with your supplier.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, and we've not even talked about like big volume discounts either, right? Like we've not talked about like if I was to order an entire pallet of that product at a time, could we get a volume discount on that too? That is something that they do like to see, is when they can get rid of a lot of product in one go. But again, it comes down to like how you can store it, if you have the space for it, and then also it's a little bit more tricky to kind of price or calculate the costing of that job as you're pulling it out of a stock rather than ordering it just for one product. So if you have that model, it can get a little bit tricky. But in saying that, I mean, I've negotiated deals with suppliers where I've said, hey, can I order 15 pallets of this, but you guys just keep it at the store, and I'll call in and tell you. So they're storing it for me.
Yeah,
it's all paid up and done. But I'm just going to the store, grabbing it from them. They're doing my storage for me.
Easy for them,
saving me a fortune. So it's easy. But yeah. Okay, so exclusive pricing, that's where we're going with these kind of one-off projects, or can I get a discount on, or can I get some product for free for this one-off project, right?
20
They have a
gallons.
budget for
You're the
that too.
best.
They have a they have a whole budget for this set out at the start of the year. Okay, next. Next thing is delivery, right? So you can negotiate the delivery.
I'm glad you said that, because it's interesting. People can negotiate delivery. Yeah. I won't I want to hear your take on delivery, and I've got maybe some things that are a little different.
Sure. Yeah. So depending on the product, right? So depending on the product, you can sometimes negotiate more favorable delivery options. So for example, if you need a delivery on a Wednesday and a Friday rather than a Monday and a Thursday, you might be able to negotiate that with your supplier. One of the ways that if it's something small, for example, like say you were a roofer, right? Say you were a roofer.
Yeah.
And you ran out of something specific that you needed for the job site. I don't know, like silicone or something like that.
Sure.
You needed 2 boxes of silicone delivered to the job site. Well, could we get delivery on that? Could you get your store manager to throw that in the truck and drive it out to us so that I'm not having to take a guy off site to go and pick that up and slow down production? Or worst case, you stick it in an Uber for me and get it sent to the job site. Rather than me actually paying a guy for 3 hours to go, right?
Yeah.
They stick it in an Uber, it costs you $25 or $30, and it's on the job site within 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Yeah. You guys everybody here might be shaking their head thinking that's impossible, but they're already doing that for another client right now. You just haven't asked.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. I just haven't asked.
Yeah. We did that even way back when like Uber was just starting out and Uber was just a thing. We call up and say, hey, would you take 2 5-gallons of paint in your car? And the guy would be like, sure. And they just drive
as long as it's sealed. Right?
Yeah. And there's no awkward conversation.
One of the other ones that I like when it comes to delivery is, ask for free delivery, but also ask for style of delivery. So you mentioned roofers. One of the things with roofers is I want the product delivered with a crane on the roof, not on the driveway. Because if it's on the driveway, I have to unpack it and hoof it up there. It takes time and manpower, but you can ask. It's just a different truck that they already have on the site. You have to ask for that, and then there's roll off for trusses, but then sometimes there's damage and you've got to fix them when you're doing roll offs, but you could ask for crane delivery as well, which is a more gentler way to put it down and very specific. So you have lots of flexibility just when it comes to how products are getting delivered.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. One last thing on delivery as well, like typically we want to build systems around this, right? So that when your crew shows up on site, they're ready to go and they're not standing around waiting for a delivery truck with products. Now that killed me for a good year in my business, where I get a call from my guys and I have 5 guys waiting to get started. And they'd be like, yeah, the delivery truck isn't here yet. And I'd be like, it's been an hour since you started. I just lost 5 hours on my project.
It's almost a day. It's a day's labor.
Waiting for that. Yeah, an entire day's labor, right? We talked about GPM and how every dollar counts. So we set up a system with our supplier where we said, hey, can we have it so that this paint or this product gets delivered the 24 hours before? I'll make sure my orders are in by this time with this store or this outlet. Can you make sure it's on the job site 24 hours before? Now, again, you need to be careful with where you're dropping your material, depending on where you live.
Depending on the neighborhood. Desperate neighborhoods.
But for the most part, if you tell your client, even if you're telling your client who's on that project, hey, listen, the delivery is going to come the day before. Do you mind, taking this and sticking it around the back of the house, or do you mind leaving this on the back porch for us? We're going to need that tomorrow. Most of the time, they're like, all right, these guys are prepared and ready to go.
Yeah, love it.
Obviously, don't make them lift anything too heavy, but a couple of gallons of paint or whatever is pretty simple. So system for delivery, pricing for delivery, method of delivery can all be negotiated as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one.
Wait, there's more? There's people rolling their eyes like, what? I thought you guys were done when you asked for a second discount on the primary product, but go ahead, Lee.
No, there's more. So the other thing that we forget about our reps is that they are so in tune with the industry. They know people, they know about everything that's up and coming. They know about pricing changes that are coming up, right? All the pricing planning, stuff like that. You want to negotiate this in as well, where you say, well, hey, let's talk about, how you guys can help me scale this business by helping me with employees, for example. If we use you guys as the supplier, and if we commit to you as a supplier, could you have your guys on the lookout for my next project manager? because they're already negotiating and talking to all these businesses. They know the ones that are shutting down.
Yeah.
They know the guys who are breaking out from, say, company A to go start their own thing and might need some sub work in the meantime. I can't even tell you how many guys I've gotten like that.
Yeah.
And then if they do have retail locations as well, they might be a little bit more open to you advertising in that space as well, which is typically not something that they want everybody doing, but they might let you if you have a good enough relationship. So leveraging your supplier for, say, employees, leads, right? If someone's calling into that supplier, if you're a residential guy and you're doing roofing, for example, like your supplier might have someone who's called in to try and DIY their roof or something like that themselves. Could they refer that person to you instead? You could get leads from your supplier too. Regular industry reports. So I actually had our suppliers sending us every single month, we would get a report, and it was kind of off the cuff, where they would send us like the purchasing for each of the major companies in our area. So all my competitors, I would be able to see how much they actually
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, nothing, no crazy details on what products to use or where it was getting delivered, but
you just knew that you were top 3 or top 5.
Yeah, for sure. And
then you knew who the other players were anyways.
Absolutely. So I could actually ask them, be like, hey, well, what did they like? What's their main product? Oh, they're using this new product and they're getting really good reviews from it. Right. That's great information for me because I can adapt and change and stay in tune with what my competitors are doing as well.
That's incredible.
We're not going to the same estimates. And this is the thing. Most of the quotes that I was going to when I was doing sales is I would run into my 2 or 3 biggest competitors every single time. We had the market share that we had was crazy. And we're all friends. And funnily enough, one of the other guys that was one of our biggest competitors, he's a Scotsman as well, young guy. I know, right? So it was great. We got to chat about the homeland and stuff, but we would all stay in tune with each other. We'd all talk about pricing. We'd all talk about like our kind of clients and where we're working. We seen other competitors as a resource for us as well, to kind of lift the industry up from a pricing standpoint as well. So so industry reports. So another one is access to vendor events. So sometimes they do get an extra pass to say vendor exclusive events, such as, paint industry or paint manufacturers or
for any industry. Like they've all got it, and we don't think about it. But there's new technology in fasteners, in adhesives, in abrasives, in to go back to windows. I want to be the first one who knows about the new technology, because I'll bet you one of my customers is going to ask me, and that's going to be the deciding factor in getting that big deal.
For sure. Yeah. When you can display that level of product knowledge and nobody else can, like that can be the big difference between you booking that project or not. Right. But they've got these events. So think of like a company like 3M, for example. They make thousands of different products for every industry. But they always do trade events with your supplier. Your supplier will get tickets. They can fly down to Arizona for the week and go check out one of those events. They might take you with them, right? So you might actually get some insider secrets there too.
Yeah, while you're on the BMW racing track in Arizona. That would be horrible, wouldn't it?
I know, right?
Sounds like work.
And now here's the last one and the most important one, if you ask me, is introductions to other people who could be referral sources or suppliers for you for other products too. So who is the number one guy? And this is where you need to get really, really comfortable with the question, who do you know who? Insert the blank. Who do you know who knows who my next project manager could be? Who do you know who has an in with property maintenance companies in the local area? Who do you know who sells all the houses in that really fancy neighborhood over there? This is a really good opportunity for you to ask that question and leverage to build your referral network even bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then referral networks, here's the thing about referral networks, is they compound. If you meet one guy, you work with them for 6 months and you do a couple of jobs, he'll introduce you to your next guy. Then he'll introduce you to your next guy and your next guy and your next guy and your next guy. And it just keeps going. Right?
Yeah. You become the person who knows. You become the guy who says, I got a guy.
Yeah.
You have a solution for everything. Yeah.
For sure. Now, here's one thing that I love to do at this point in the meeting. I like to take a tactical phone call or a tactical bathroom break.
Really?
Hey, I do. I like to say, oh, sorry, guys, I've got this call. I really apologize. I really need to go take this call. I'll just be 5 minutes. And I'll actually walk away from the table and I'll let them talk to each other, the regional manager and the actual rep.
This is next level.
Yeah.
So you're letting them come. Okay. Sorry. Let me not act like I know. It's probably better to be curious. What happens when you come back from the bathroom break or the phone call, Lee?
Yeah. So but essentially what happens is this is something that's psychological, is when you break the habit. So we've been negotiating for almost 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. I'm then going to take the intensity away because I am the intensity of this conversation. I'm going to give them the opportunity to kind of deflate a little bit, maybe have a discussion. I'm going to leave them there for 10 minutes on the phone. I'm going to wander around like this, maybe call the wife or something like that. But I'm going to let them have that conversation. They'll be talking. They'll be like, hey, he's asking for too much, but maybe we can give him this. Maybe we can give them. They're actually talking about the negotiation while you're gone.
Yeah.
So when you come back, it's almost like a fresh restart where you get to be super friendly again and be like, all right, guys, we just talked about all this great stuff. Like, what do you think? Can we agree on this? Can we agree on this discount? Can we talk about this percentage?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think? And they're going to say either yes or no, or they're going to renegotiate. But if you've done your job right and you have all the decision makers there, they should be ready to sign off and say, yep, we can get this done. And once that happens and once they say, yep, we're ready to go, now we can kind of start talking about a guarantee. Because I want to slip this one in here. I want to guarantee that over the next 2 years or 3 years, that pricing isn't going to increase more than, say, 1% or 2%. The reason for that is because if and guys will know this, is they'll get an email every January or February that says, hey, due to the increase in the cost of XXX material, we're having to boost our prices. Everything's going up 5-6%.
Yeah.
If you set it in stone now and say, hey, like, we're going to guarantee that we're not going to go up more than 2%. When that email comes, you can say, hey, I'm just checking. This doesn't apply to me, right? This isn't for me. Eh? And they're like, oh yeah, no, you're good. Everybody else will get it from, but you're good. Right. So putting that guarantee in place.
It's so much driven on relationships, respectful, professional, intentional relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, we did a lot for our suppliers too. This wasn't just a take situation as well. Like, if you can, give your supplier an opportunity to say, get some industry insights from you, get your feedback, try out a product that they're looking to try and sample in the market or something like that. I mean, give them some of that as well, Yeah. We used to leverage our suppliers quite a bit. And I encourage most of my clients to do this now, to actually, not just for this stuff, but like training. If I had a new employee, like say I had a new salesperson come in into the business, I want my sales rep to train that person on the technical specs of the product. Not me. I am not the best guy to do that.
Right.
My rep will be the guy who sells this stuff for a living en masse, en masse.
Yeah.
Is the best guy to train my salespeople. So
that's brilliant. So he's going to come, he's going to do a presentation on training on the windows, the installs or sinks or whatever the product line is.
Absolutely. And he's going to be invested in that salesperson's training, because if the salesperson sells and he's selling his product, they want to try and capture that, capture that relationship too. Yeah. That's the part where you get to step away. When you're handing over sales, you know that your guy is in good hands with your sales rep.
Yeah.
Because they're going to keep them right.
You realize that we've only scratched the surface of the tips that you share.
Oh, I know. And like I said, I've taught this 100 times, and I've probably missed 40% of the extra tips in each call, just given that we've always run out of time. There's so much here, right? Yeah. So it does take a couple of sessions to actually get through it. I'm glad we're recording this podcast because we can capture quite a bit.
We could use it later. Yeah. But I think what I'm re-understanding here is it's important to get started.
Yes.
Because it's a relationship, it's going to continue to evolve. So even if on that very first meeting, all they say is, buddy, look, we can do free shipping, but that's it. That's fine. We've started the discussion. Invite them back in again in a year and have the same conversation again. And you just get better as you go. One of the things that I just did with a client is we chose a line item that was medium, because he wanted to practice on a line item that he uses. He uses it all the time, but he doesn't spend very much. So he wanted to practice his system with that vendor first before he went to his big vendors, which I thought was a really wise way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's basically a sales tactic, right? I mean, you're selling yourself to someone to buy into your vision and get them on board too. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to have multiple suppliers in your area, right? Say you've got 3 or 4 big options of where you could be getting this product from. Have this conversation with all of them. Right? Have this conversation with all of them, see who buys in the most, because if they seem like they're bought into your vision and your business, they're going to be invested to see it grow.
Yeah.
Now, they might not take a chance on a small business right now, which is fine. They want to hedge their bets and make sure that you're going to be that you are a good business. But the ones that will invest in you early when you're smaller, say like sub 500K or sub 300K, those are the ones that are going to stay with you for life.
Yeah.
The ones who are just going to write you off, you're going to make them wish that they had given you that discount in the beginning, because you're going to grow so big. You know, like I said, we went from, with the moving company, we went 1 million to 6 million with, you know, with
It's
the painting company,
yeah,
multiple millions of dollars, you know, and there was suppliers who, you know, didn't give me the time of the day. And I said, all right, okay, that's fine. Guess who was calling me every week in year 5, year 6?
Yeah.
Hey, just checking in. We want to take you out. I'm good. Thanks. I'm going out with these guys.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, you'll get suppliers like that. So
yeah,
ask yourself with your supplier how many problems you can solve with your business. Do that every 3 months. Make a point of just checking in with them and say, hey, I'm going through these 3 challenges or these 2 challenges as well. Like, what do you think? Are you seeing this elsewhere in the industry? They're going to give you some advice. They're going to say, oh yeah, Tony had this over at ABC Contracting. You know, this is how we got through it, that kind of thing. Use them for that too. They want to help you out. They want to move you forward.
Yeah.
They want to help you recruit. They want to help you expand, and they want you to buy their product. So like, I mean, there's something in there for them too.
I just had the craziest example of this come up the other day, because I've been working with this other contractor probably for about 3 years now. And so we have this system in place where he has the regular vendor communications going on. This happens to be just a straight lumber store. It's just a lumber store that he's talking to. So it's nothing fancy. It's not a specialty line, but they had a flood at the lumber store in the lumber yard, and they wrote off lifts of 2x6s, but 20 footers. And so it was written off, and the owner of the store called him and said, hey, you want to buy this stuff? It's water damaged, but the water damage just meant discoloration. So he bought 20 feet long, 20 footers of 2x6s for, like, when you say pennies on the dollar, it was pennies on the dollar. But unless he had that relationship, he wasn't going to get that phone call. They just needed it off the lot because it had been written off, but only for discoloration.
Yeah.
It was already gone. So you don't, I guess, Lee, you and I can try to predict where the benefit's going to be to our listeners, to our audience, or to the people who work with us in coaching, but we never know. The beauty is that once you go and start those relationships, they're normal human relationships. They lead where they lead.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. There's infinite possibilities. And I mean, always having an extra friend who has your back and is in the industry is not a bad idea in any way, shape, or form, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'll wrap it up there. I would say
that's a lie. That's a lie, because you've got more.
I was just gonna say it's clear. Hopefully it's clear now, like how important that vendor relationship is. And really all it takes is a little bit of cojones and a good relationship, and you'll get something out of this. I mean, even if you don't, it'll make your relationship stronger, and at least your rep knows what your intentions and what your aspirations are, and they can try and get on board with that. They'll be able to do something for you. I'm telling you, they want to see you succeed.
Yeah. I'm going to zoom out right now. I'm going to lift us up above this conversation. And I want to remind everybody that Lee and I were just talking about one subsection of one of the 8 profit leaks in a construction business. Mm-hmm. So if you're ever wondering, why to listen to the show, which we very much appreciate, this is why you listen to the show. This is the good stuff. And it's been tested by fire. Lee and I have done this with our own businesses, but also with clients all over the place. So, Lee, I really appreciate you coming on today. If somebody wants to find out more, if they want to work with us, how do they do that?
Yeah, you can just shoot me an email direct to lee@10xblt.com. 10x being 10, not the letter.
Yeah, 10blt.com.
blt.com, and that's my direct email. So yeah, I mean, typically you would go through like an online portal where you would fill out your information, or if you're calling from this episode, it's very specific. Just shoot me an email direct. We can hop on a call. We'll talk a little bit more about it, or maybe you need some advice on how to actually have that conversation. I'd be happy to do that. And then we'll tell you guys about the options for being coached, and then also our boot camp. We could help you too. If you're interested in moving forward, we're seeing some absolutely amazing results, and even some really simple wins very early off the bat by teaching people about gross margin, using dashboards. I would say in the last, maybe 3 months we're starting to see huge results from the guys who have been with us for 3 to 6 months at that point.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well,
highly recommend. I know it's a shameless plug here, but
that's okay. We're all about shameless plugs.
and
One more shameless plug. What does 10X Built stand for? Because do you remember what you said to me when we first met?
10X,
And I said the coaching company's 10X Built, BLT.
Yeah, 10X bacon, lettuce, tomato. Is that the lunch order?
I thought it was a lunch order. Yeah. But it's just again, it comes down to human relationships. Not everybody wants to come to you and I for more money. They want to have a nicer boat. They want to drive that boat on a prettier lake, and they want to get there with a newer truck. Maybe we should say they want to get braces for their kids. They want to leave a legacy for their family, and they want more time. But it's 10X Built is what it is. Whatever you want out of coaching, talk to Lee and I, and we'll find a way to make it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
And I would love to be your business coach. I mean, this is an incredibly rewarding job for me. Like, I love coaching. I love getting in the nitty gritty. And I've been there, I've done it, I've been in the trenches, I've worked the 80 to 90 hour work weeks. I love to see quick results. So yeah, get in contact with me. I would love to work with you.
All right. Thanks for being on, Lee. We'll have you back again. There's 1,000 subjects behind that smiling face. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye. Well. Thank you for listening, and thank you for taking part in that fantastic interview with Coach Lee Miller. Lee is tearing it up out there with our coaching clients, and I thought it was about time to bring him in here. Talking about vendor negotiations is one tiny part of the conversations we have. But it's such an important part, right? Because there's money going out of your business all the time. And we want to keep that money in your business. So it's going in your pocket, in your jeans, front pocket of your jeans, right? So in the episode, you heard me talk to Lee about a different episode that we did on another podcast. So if you're not familiar, I host 2 industry podcasts. This one is called Profit Tool Belt, right? The other one is called Cabinet Maker Profit System. Crazy, right? So on that particular podcast, we talked to cabinet makers, architectural mill workers, still subtrades, but subtrades in a slightly different angle from the Profit Tool Belt crowd. The reason that's important is because there's a screen share on the YouTube version of that where he talks about gross versus net profit. Here, we're talking about vendor negotiations. That was the interview we just did. So lots of different topics with Lee and I going back and forth. If you have any interest at all in the business of the contracting business, that's the kind of language that Lee and I and the rest of our coaches talk all the time. So today, I want to make sure you walked away understanding that there's opportunity inside your business in what we call profit leaks. And those profit leaks exist for all of us. And it doesn't matter the size of your business. Those profit leaks are there. Vendor negotiations happens to be one of the kind of fun ones out there, because you can get people taking you to football games and hockey games or golfing, or maybe they want to take you out doing skeet or trap shooting or fishing or whatever you like to do. Just let that be known. So dealing with your vendors in a really smart and wise and respectful way pays dividends. And those dividends come back to you, like I said. So I'm glad you got what you needed here from Coach Lee. And hopefully you can find a way to put that in place in your business. You can see it's a very respectful approach, because we know they're doing a job. They know we're doing a job, and we need to find a way to work together to do all of our jobs. Before I wrap up, we've got lots of great testimonials coming in, as I mentioned, from Lee. I'm going to let you go find them. If you want to research us, hey, go look online at reviews or testimonials, because there's lots of them out there on us. If you want to leave one, I'd love to have you leave one. If you found value here, love to hear it. Always love to hear it. Thank you. Today, we're going to simplify and solve a common problem. And that common problem that we're all dealing with is New Year's is on the way. Christmas is on the way. We're at the end of the year. And that common problem that we have is this: 2024 is looming. If you want to make 2024 your best year ever, join me. We're running a masterclass. To get into the masterclass, you've got to opt in. Like, you've got to just shoot me a text message is all you have to do. And just say, best year ever. And shoot me a text at 315-903-7853. Just say best year ever. But we're going to be covering off 3 things that are of huge importance when you're setting your direction for 2024, especially if you want to start on the right foot. And there's just no better time than a calendar year. I know your fiscal year might be a little bit different. That's okay. The calendar year is what we all live by in the regular world. So join us to do that, right? So you're going to be starting January strong, really strong. And think about the competitors in your market. they're probably not listening to this show. They're most likely not thinking about strategic planning and taking themselves forward. They are, I don't know what they're doing. I feel bad for them, but you've got the opportunity here right now. So join us for this masterclass training. It's an hour long. And I go over 3 major components of planning your 2024 so that you have predictability and consistency in it. We're going to be covering off time management for you as a contractor. We're going to be covering off team and leadership for you as the owner of a contracting business. Most of us have never had formal leadership training. This will be a really good series of tools for you to use there. And then we've got money. So today with Lee, we were talking about money on vendor negotiations. On the other podcast, we were talking to him about money, where we talk about the difference between gross profit and net profit. One of the listeners on the other show is a guy named James. He's down in South America. And he just texted me this weekend. He's like, how come my accountant says I'm making money, but I'm not? I don't actually see the money. That's part of this conversation. If you ever had that curiosity, that's really what we've got to dig into, is where that just disappears and why it's like that. Anyways, we learn a lot more about that on the masterclass. The reason for the masterclass is because I found that there's a gap in learning, and I'm trying to get people back up to speed so they can listen to the podcasts again with a different level of understanding as to where they want to take their business. So the masterclass is a good way to do that. Love to have you on there. Again, just send me the keyword best year ever as a text message. And that way I know what's coming in, because we get texts all the time, right? So send me a text message that says best year ever. And then I'll know you want to have your best year ever, and send it to me on my cell, 315-903-7853. Okay. Listen, I appreciate you listening. I want to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, if you don't get a chance to talk to me before then. I really am proud of the work that I do, and I'm proud of everybody that listens here. One day I want to have here's my cup of coffee right here. I want to have a cup of coffee with you. I want to shake your hand. I want to have a glass of wine. But until then, this podcast is going to have to do. But one day I know we'll have a chance to meet. Until then, have a great one. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.